don't be afraid to suck. Right?
Yeah, I like that.
Like, I think it's easy to be, I don't want to try because, I'm afraid of how I'm going to look.
Yeah.
And like you and I were talking.
Okay, what's up everybody? We are here live, just finishing up Door-to-Door Con actually, and ran into someone that was introduced by a previous podcast guest. This guy, he's running retreats for sales teams. He's been in the industry. How long have you been in door-to-door now?
Since 2008, so.
Wow. Long time.
I don't know, not the greatest at math, but
yeah.
It's been a few years.
A long time. So yeah, we got Tracy coming on. Thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Taylor, stoked to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. And yeah, I know you've been veteran of the industry, been in this forever. And yeah, especially, I don't think I've had anyone on that's done retreats like you're running. You got a ranch and everything. So super excited to jam on that with you and hear how you've been able to just help up-level a lot of door-to-door teams at your ranch. But yeah, I guess let's start with, what's your background, man? How'd you get into alarms and door-to-door back in the day?
Yeah, great question. Been doing it a long time now, and I just got to say, first of all, like, I love your podcast, really do.
Thank you, brother.
When I bumped into you at the entryway here yesterday, kind of kicking this thing off, I was stoked to meet you in person because I've got a lot of value from this over the years, and I've shared it with a lot of people, and I love what you're doing, and so I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah.
As far as my personal experience, it's kind of unique getting into door-to-door. I grew up on a ranch, a cattle ranch in southern Idaho.
Nice.
And I played, I look like a wrestler, but I actually played basketball in junior high and high school.
Okay.
You wouldn't guess it, right? I mean, I'm not going to say I was good. I was more of a middle linebacker on the basketball court, right?
Okay.
But it was in the 8th grade. We were playing a team that we didn't like, and me and another kid, his name was Derek Davis. I didn't know his name at the time, but we got into a bit of a scuffle. Okay. And the referee kicked us both out, and so I got ejected as an 8th grader from a basketball game. So you were trying to wrestle at the basketball games? Huh? Pretty much, throwing a few elbows, kind of jawing back and forth. Anyway, we both got kicked out of the game, and that was in the 8th grade. Fast forward several years later, I'm in high school. I did rodeo competitively, so I rode bulls and bronc horses. And there's this kid back behind the buck and shoots at this rodeo in Rexburg, Idaho, and we keep looking at each other, and I'm like, man, where do I know this kid from, And rodeo's different. You're competing against each other, but it's a team sport. You're rooting for each other too. Yeah. And so he comes over and he says, hey, aren't you, didn't you go to Raft River? And I said, yeah, how'd you know? And he introduced himself and said, I'm the kid that we got in a fight and we both got kicked out, right? Oh, no way. And so, wow. Kind of funny, but to take this thing whole circle, we stayed in touch. Okay. Became really good friends, stayed in touch, rodeoed together. We both graduated. We went on LDS service missions, and then he touched base with me after we had both got home from our missions, a couple of years, and he had gone out with Apex Alarms. I think he went to San Diego. Okay. Had a really killer first year. Yeah. And at that time, I was working back home for a utility, a co-op. Okay. Reading meters and shutting people's power off if they didn't pay their bill. Wow. People must have hated you. Kind of a love-hate, yeah. Yeah, it was a good job. It was a good starting position, but I knew I didn't want to do that forever. And he told me, he said, I made 80 grand this summer selling alarms. It's a lot of money. It's good money when you're 21 years old. Especially back then. Back then, yeah. So I told him, I said, I'm interested. But at that time, my wife, I was newly married, my wife was pregnant, and I had really good insurance with the co-op, and I said, hit me up next summer. Yeah. So another year rolled by, he hit me up, and I said, I'm ready, let's do this. So I quit, and didn't look back from there, but that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah, that's awesome. Started with an 8th grade basketball scuffle. Man, yeah, that's a unique story. Yeah. That might be one of the top door-to-door introduction stories right there. Right on. Full circle. That's good. I will say, and we've stayed in touch, he's no longer in door-to-door, but every once in a while I I tell him, hey man, like, you know, thank you. Like I have had some incredible experiences, made some amazing friendships, and had a really good lifestyle as a result. And, you know, just somebody being willing to invite me to come do something different, you know?
Yeah, there you go. You've never tried to get him to come back and do solar since then?
He actually kind of took a step back, and I went on to manage, and he did come, and he was on my team when I was selling alarms in Pittsburgh back in like 2009 or 10, and so he came on as a rep in one of my offices. But no, he likes what he's doing now. He does something with the grocery. He does something for farmers and grocery stores, and he really loves what he's doing. But I don't see him coming back to the doors anytime soon.
That'd be funny if he was like a meter reader now for that. That'd be like the old
shutting people's power off, right?
Took your old job that you left.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
But no, it's cool. We're still really good friends, and I'm just grateful that. Like I said, started as a scuffle and turned out to be good friends, and it's actually been a really huge part of my life, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's something, we've actually done that, and our correlations from every once in a while, we've done a thing where we go and thank the person that got us into the opportunity, because I think it's a good, I don't know, like gratitude exercise, go back, because you don't really think about it. And same for me, I actually did this 6 months ago when we did that little exercise. Went and reached out to the guy that recruited me to pest control. Hadn't talked to him in like 10 years, and he was like, it was kind of a cool reunion again. So I think it's cool to just reflect and have that gratitude for the people that brought us in, because it's like life-changing industry right here, and
definitely.
Who knows where we would be if someone didn't reach out to us. So,
Derek, if you're listening, thank you.
Yeah.
I doubt you are, but I'll tell you what, Taylor, hold me accountable. I'm gonna give him a call on my drive back to the ranch and thank him.
Yeah, all right, thanks, Derek.
Depends on the day,
send him
right?
The podcast,
You have a rough day and you get your teeth kicked in on the doors, you know, you're like, nah.
I shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have listened to him. Yeah, well, cool. And so we'll get into the solar side of things in a minute, but how did it go? Alarms, was it pretty smooth? I know it's been a long time, but did you struggle quite a bit starting out in alarms, or how was your first year in alarms?
Actually, I feel like I had a few advantages. I'm not going to say it wasn't hard. I think there's ebb and flow, but I really started off. I had a good first year. I don't think I ever really had a bad year. Progressively got better and better, but I felt fortunate because I'd gone on a mission, and so when it was stateside, and I learned how to, you know, set aside the fear of knocking a door and handling rejection. That helped a ton. And then the other thing was working at the power company. Like I said, I was the guy that would knock on the door and say, hey, your bill's overdue, I'm sorry, but if you don't pay it by the end of the day, we're shutting you off, you know, which I had to do a lot. And sometimes that was kind of hard if it was somebody you knew, but I'd just try to approach it in kind of a fun, playful way and just say, look, you know, I don't think any less of you, and I'm just doing my job, and I want to help you, you know, keep your power on. But I think what that did is it helped me develop some skills to learn how to deal with rejection and how to communicate with people. And so I'm not going to say, definitely there are hard days, there's hard moments, but I do feel like I took to it pretty quick. And progressively just got better with it every year. And so I did alarms for several years, a lot longer than I've done solar, actually. And I really enjoyed it. I think probably one of the biggest benefits is just learning how to close. And same day, I really think that's an advantage, to just know how to get the deal done and how to get it installed that day. It'd be amazing if we could do that with solar.
I know.
I know there's some people that say they're going to get there, and I don't know if it ever will, and maybe it never has to, but I do feel like I'm very grateful for my time in alarms, because it taught me how to, you know, eat what you kill, right? Like, go for the close, and don't be afraid of no, and if it is a no, on to the next one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I think most of the greatest guys in solar, they came from alarms first, and you know, same thing in pest control. Like I see a lot of newer solar guys that they don't take the opportunity seriously. They go out a couple hours, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not the same as like the summer grind that we're used to in summer cells. So, you know, I jokingly say that everyone should go do a summer of, you know, alarms or like pest control, so they can,
no doubt.
they can see the work ethic. Cause
so you came from pest control?
Yeah.
Where did you do past that?
I did it Aptive.
Okay.
Well, it was Altera back then. But, yeah, it was 2012, and then I did it in I did a mission 2, and then 2014 and 2015.
Cool.
And then 2016, summer 2016 is when I got into solar.
So I've heard your intro a lot of times to the podcast, and one of the things that stood out to me is you said at one time you had $50 in your bank account.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, I was never I never was very good at pest control, so I didn't actually make that much money doing pest control. But yeah, like when I came into solar, they had to pay for my gas to get out there, and then I had about $50 for food. So I'm sure you heard me say it on the podcast, but I was cooking people food in the morning, and just so they would share their food with me, because I didn't have anything out there. But yeah, I mean, you know, come a long ways, and that's why I love solar, because it took me from, you know, literally $50 to now being able to get home and, you know, provide for my family and everything. So yeah, super grateful for it.
Yeah, that's legit, man.
Yeah. But yeah, enough about me. People hear about me all the time. So I want to hear how you transitioned to solar. So you did alarms, what, 7-8 years, you said?
Probably a little bit longer than that, and occasionally I just got a call, a referral last week, and I just gave it as a referral to my good buddy Jeremy Bell, who still works at Vivint, and we've stayed in touch and stayed friends. But you know, I actually in 2016 I was given the chance to go. I was supposed to manage an office down in, it's just outside of, where's Disneyland? What's the name of that town right there? Anaheim, with a guy by the name of Jake Gregory. Jake's been in the industry a long time. And my regional at the time with Vivint on the alarm side was Casey Baugh, and he said, hey, I think you ought to take this opportunity. I went down to Bakersfield and kind of cut my teeth in solar, sold a few deals with Sterling Hills. Do you know Sterling?
I don't think I know.
Jeff Gallivan, they've been in Bakersfield for years, and it was Vivint Solar at the time.
Okay.
And sometimes I look back and I regret, because I see where some of those guys are and what they've done in the industry, but I went and I did it for like a month, and at that time, my daughters, I had gone through a divorce, and I was a single dad, and I had 2 daughters living in Idaho with their mom, and I just felt like even though I knew there was a big opportunity there, I didn't feel right about living that far away from my kids, so I took a step back and I stayed in alarms a few more years. And sometimes that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, because I guess hindsight's always 20/20, and it's easy to look back and say, man, I wish I would have jumped in both feet then, right? But I didn't do it until several years later. I've only been doing it for a couple of years, and I do it part-time because, like I was telling you, my family's got a cattle ranch up in Idaho, and I'm doing some different ventures with that. But it's been really fun. I really enjoy it, and it's cool now to be to go from the guy that used to be there to shut their power off if they weren't paying their bill, to say, hey, I've got a solution. Let's have you pay less. Let's have you keep more of your money and produce your own power. So that's kind of fun. So probably just three or 4 years now.
Okay. Yeah, and you're doing blitzes, right?
Yeah.
So going on blitzing for solar.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we'll do some research, pick markets. I've got a few comrades that I travel with that we've been buddies for years, and we work together and we play together, and we'll research markets, and we'll go blitz different markets based on utilities, power rates, incentives, wherever we feel like we're going to get the most bang for our buck. And we'll also broker it, if you will, meaning we like the option of being able to give the homeowner the best fit.
Yeah.
And it's not a one size fits all. Different companies have different advantages,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the model that we've been doing, and it seems to work. Something else, and you and I didn't talk about it previously, but this is kind of a fun part about door-to-door background and solar is just, you come to something like this, and like you and I were talking, it's like a reunion. You're meeting people that you've worked with over the years in different capacities, but I've been able to form relationships not just on the residential side, but I've got a buddy up in Cache Valley, Jason Baugh. I don't know if have you met Jason?
I don't know. He's Casey's brother or something, or
he's Baugh from Cache Valley, but I don't think they're actually related. They've worked together. Both are just great people, like Casey and Jason. Jason has he's gotten a really good reputation for himself, carving out kind of a niche in commercial and also in ag, which has kind of been a really challenging dynamic for a lot of companies and reps to figure out, but he's done it. And so I've been working with him on some different projects, like with farmers and businesses as well.
To do solar for them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's a lot more challenging, and there's a lot more paperwork and red tape, which isn't my forte, but he's very good at all that. And so if I'm not out on the road doing that, when I'm back home at the ranch, I'm also making contacts with farmers and businesses to look at the commercial and the ag side of solar too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so by the time people listen to this, episode should be out. But yeah, I know you're working with Dan Anderson and Dusty Broadhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So did a great episode with them. Had a couple audio issues, unfortunately, but everyone should go. We'll link that if you haven't listened to that. Go check it out. But yeah, before we get into your ranch a little bit more and the retreats and all that, with blitzes. I do a blitz maybe once a quarter, so I don't do a ton of blitzing, but yeah, I got a lot of respect for guys that are just like constantly traveling and all that. And we talked a lot with Dusty and Dan about how they structure it, and was it like 10 days, right? They do 10 days or so.
At the longest. Ty Bastian, good friend of mine, Vital. Love the Vital group. We've worked with them as well, but they kind of structured the 10 on, 20 off, and I think that's a great way to do it. Nothing wrong with that. We're getting a little long in the tooth, me and Dan and Dusty, and so we found that we have done stretches that long, but we usually try to keep it to a week. Fly out on a Sunday evening and fly back the following Sunday, right? But there's pros and cons, right? Obviously, the longer you can spend in a market, the more deals you're going to close. At the same time, I like sleeping in my own bed and spending time with my family.
It's tough. As you know, it's tough when you have kids and family, and that's why my wife, she hates it when I go on blitzes, because then she's got to deal with, we've got a 5, a 3, and a baby.
Oh, cool.
So, it's a lot of, even me coming to door-to-door con and all that, she's like, another conference, not again. And kind of complains, but she understands. But yeah, it is tough when, it's
hard to complain when she can, jump on Amazon and buy the thing she wants, right?
I know.
Trade-off.
I know. Like, hey, gotta make the money to buy the stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, from your perspective, and guys can go listen to that episode, we go a lot more in depth on that. But I guess just to touch on that, what's been your maybe perspective from doing these blitzes, or anything you've learned, or maybe experienced, maybe things that you wish could have gone better as you first started, things that have been improved, or what's been your perspective going on these blitzes? Yeah,
good question. And there's pros and cons to living in a market and work in a market. I think is a good thing. I think from my perspective, more than anything, with my background in alarms, I got used to being gone during the summers, and then in the off season doing these blitzes. So this actually, it feels more normal to me than living in a market and working in it would probably. You know what I'm saying?
Alarms,
But I think there's pros and cons to both. I will say one thing about the blitz model is I love the hit it and quit it mentality.
Yeah.
Because like you're talking about, and family, kid, wife, kids, I love that when I'm home, I can be home and I can be there. And not to say that you don't get phone calls and that there's not work to do, but it is nice to be able to just get in the car, go to the airport, and once I'm in my car, I know like I can focus, it's time to work. And my wife respects that. And she tries to, we talk in the evenings, but she's, thank goodness, she's very supportive, but not needy, I guess you could say. She knows that like I need to focus and I need to execute when I'm out. And I feel like I've just over the years just been programmed to kind of work that way, and it works good for us. Not to say that there are definitely advantages to living in a market and working it year round, which is what I'm building up on the ag and the commercial side when I'm at home. But I will say I love traveling. I get a little bit stir crazy if I've been at home too long. I've got a bit of a gypsy soul. And so I love meeting people. We do try to, when we do blitz models, I like it when we have a market that I've been to several times, because you've got momentum there, right? You've got referrals, you've got names to drop. You've already kind of cut your teeth in the area. So we try to stay in an area as long as we can.
That's awesome. And I know they talked a lot about, sounds like you guys are pretty aligned, because that's exactly what Dusty and Dan were saying too, is just that they can go all in, full focus. And it's funny the results speak for themselves. I know a lot of you guys that were more setting deals and them closing too, they made more money than a lot of full-time guys go to. So I think it's like a lot of guys that are in the market, they kind of sometimes take advantage because there's not that separation. So they're just like, oh, I'm gonna get out, work whenever I want. And so I think there is a benefit in that, where you guys know, okay, especially if you're only there a week.
Exactly.
Like you gotta
make your time count. It's like, hey, I'm not out here sleeping in a hotel and being away from my wife and my family for free. I don't want to go and not be productive. And it helps having, guys there that are holding you accountable. And so like you touched on, I've closed deals, but I prefer on the solar side just being the setter. It fits me better. I don't enjoy the pipeline, and I don't enjoy the pull-through process. Dan and Dusty are wizards at that. They're really good at closing. They're really good at navigating pipeline. But my expertise, I'm good at knocking a door, making a connection, making a friend. And so I feel like we work really well in that aspect, but just making the time count and knowing that, hey, I've got 5 or 7 days here, and when I'm at home, I want to be at home, so I'm going to go hustle, but also knowing that, hey, these guys are counting on me to get them to kitchen tables so they can do what they do. So it works really good. I'm not saying it doesn't work for everybody, but we found a way to make it good for us, so it's been fun. And then you get back in the evening and rubbing shoulders and watching Family Guy with the boys, and telling stories and crazy stuff that happens on the doors. Sometimes I like to give them a hard time because I don't know about you, but I wear a vest on the doors, right? And I used to get some shit for that. Right? Can I say that on the podcast? I grew up on a ranch.
You do. You're a ranch.
So I used to get a little bit of, I got some flack for that, and I did it when I worked for the utility too, so I feel like when I do that, I'm just doing my job, right? Hey, I'm just here to get the power bill, you know? And anyway, Dan and Dusty would tease me, so what we like to do a lot of times is same day appointments, I'll get the power bill, and then I'll call them and say, hey, any chance you guys are in the area? How about you swing by, take a look at the roof, take a look at the power bill, and they'll roll in and they'll get out, and I'll shake my head in disgust and say, hey, you guys, I'm going to look the other way this time, but if you come to another appointment without your vests on, I'm going to make sure that you guys get written up. Awesome. And sometimes the customers don't know how to take it, and they usually laugh, but it's kind of a way of me making light of me wearing a vest and they're not, That's
so funny.
I haven't, I do wear the vest. When I was at the utility, I used to wear a hard hat too. I haven't pushed it that far yet, but Taylor, if we ever get the chance to go in the doors, man, I think you and I are wearing hard hats and vests.
We might have to make it happen. Yeah, I've never seen that. I've seen guys that go with tool belts.
Tool belt, yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's a next level hard hat. That would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the full getup.
The hard hat and the vest, man. Let's do it. We'll make it happen.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
SDG&E, right?
Yeah. You'd never, people would have no idea.
Isn't that who it is down in San Diego?
Yeah, it does work as much as people hate on the vests. I mean, I gotta say.
Do you wear one?
No, I don't wear a vest.
I don't know. Maybe it's just here, but I feel like another thing that it does, at least for me, is I feel like I'm wanting to be seen. I'm not trying, and so that has people let their guard down pretty quick, but not saying I couldn't knock without one, but it's kind of a little joke between the three of us. I'll shake my head and be like, I can't believe this. You guys are violating code again, and if it happens, I'm going to look the other way, but if it happens again, we're going to have to write you out.
We're going to HR, yeah. That's so funny.
You got to make it fun, right? Because it can get super, you know how it is. Some days are better than others, but you gotta learn to like laugh and joke and like be a real person on the doors. You know, you can't be a robot.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that's how people as old as me and you are, us old guys, you know, we gotta have fun, because when you've done it for 8-10 years, you gotta figure out a way to make it enjoyable.
Yes, exactly.
It's important. Yep, so that's cool, man. Well, yeah, guys can go listen to that other podcast with Dan and Dusty if you want to hear all about their blitzes. But yeah, let's jump into your ranch and everything now, because that's what I was interested to hear about. How long you've been doing retreats on your ranch now?
Well, we're a fourth generation cattle ranching family, so that's what I grew up doing.
Yeah.
Goes clear back to the 1800s. My family homesteaded, in Ogden, Utah, and then went up to Idaho. It's a little town called Almo, Idaho. So it's about 2.5 hours from Salt Lake.
Okay.
And so it's been in the family for years, and I grew up, working cattle, riding horses. I rodeoed competitively. It's just in my blood. I love it.
Nice.
But I also love to travel. I love sales. I love being able to make, the professional money that is in sales.
Yeah.
And so about the time I transitioned from alarms to solar, took a step back for a year or so and moved back to the ranch. Loved it, enjoyed it, but wanted to find a way to kind of bring the two together. I've met several really good friends over the years that would always say, hey, I want to come up to the ranch and go ride horses or move cows or shoot a deer or go rabbit hunting or bird hunting or whatever. And so I'd had a few friends that had come up, but I thought, man, it'd be really cool to put the two together. One thing that Vivint did really good, they did like leadership retreats and different things. We'd always do quarterly retreats or incentive trips and things like that, and I loved it. I felt like it gave you a chance to get off the doors and really like bond with the people you work with in like a non-work environment, in a fun way. And so when I took a step back from the doors for a year or so, I thought, look, this would be really cool to kind of bring the two together, and give people an excuse and an opportunity to come here, to get in nature, to disconnect, and to retreat a little bit, and to enjoy country living and Western lifestyle. And so we built a campground, and we're in the process of expanding it, but we've got some geodesic domes, if you've ever seen those.
Yeah.
Similar to a yurt, but they're actually a little cooler because you've got a big picture style window in the front.
Okay.
So you're camping, you're glamping, right? It's glamorous camping. Like you've got some modern convenience.
Yeah.
You feel like you're right in nature, but you've got a roof over your head, you've got a heater, you're warm or you're cool, or, depending on what time of year it is. But I just love it. It gives you a chance to get out and reflect and really, recharge, I guess, more than anything. And so that's one aspect of it. It's the campground.
Yeah.
With the geodesic domes, we've done tents as well. It kind of depends on whatever the group wants to do. Vital Shout out to Vital, love the crew there.
Yeah.
We've hosted their leadership retreat. They call it the offsite the last 2 years.
Okay.
And that's where they bring some of their top performers. And we plan out, I usually coordinate with Libby and Brittany. They're freaking awesome, and that's who plans out all of their retreats.
Cool.
And we just begin with the end in mind, like, hey, what do you want to accomplish? And we literally jam on it for several months, and I help, we do a tailor-made plan for their retreat, and we put it together. So like last year, it was a blast. We did a rodeo.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, like full-on rodeo, and thank goodness nobody was hurt.
Yeah, I'm like,
which that's what makes it fun, right?
Waivers for that, yeah.
Yes, there were waivers signed.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been an adrenaline junkie, but it's fun that you can get out there and do things that let people really kind of push the limits a little bit, So we did that. We did a day on the Snake River where we rented pontoon boats and jet skis and set up a volleyball net and had a blast doing that. And then we cater all their meals.
Wow.
My mom, my sister-in-law, my wife are phenomenal cooks, and so we catered all their meals, and then they'll bring in like guest speakers or specialists that do breath work to really make sure that there's a good balance. But it's been a lot of fun, and so I've done it with Vital and some other groups. We've also done men's groups. We've done couples retreats.
Wow.
What we're really focused on right now that I'm really stoked about is I was telling you a little bit about it, I think, the guided bison hunts.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned that.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where that goes. We're just rolling it out, but right now we're offering guided hunts on the ranch.
Yeah.
Where it's not a high fence hunt. It's not a high fence hunt, meaning they're not just in a pasture or a corral, but these are like out on the range and on the mountainside.
Okay.
And we pack back in on horses, and we literally, we hunt them, we harvest them, process them, and then you get to enjoy the meat, right?
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
just becoming a primal, going back to our ancestry. I love that.
Well, what's cool about this, and we're recording this at just finished Door to Door Con 8.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sam, phenomenal lineup and event, and if you haven't made it, you should definitely bring your team, come and be part of this. But kind of the main theme in his new book was Eat What You Kill.
Yeah, right? That's right. I got a copy of his book, excited to read it.
Yeah, and so there's a parallel there, like, hey, we're hunters in a sense, right?
Sure.
Like, you wake up, you get back to San Diego, and you wake up Monday morning and you roll out of bed, you're gonna go find a deal, right?
Yeah.
Several. And I love that aspect of it, that it correlates perfectly, that you've got to be self-motivated, you've got to know what you're looking for, and you can't be afraid to go out and hustle for it,
Yeah.
But
that's so good. Well, I was just sorry to cut you off, but
no,
I was just
good,
gonna say, we were talking before we hit recorder too. I just did a retreat at another ranch here in Utah with Jens Bunnell, who's his company is Momentum Man, and a lot of similar things. And I think it was kind of like a men's retreat type thing.
Yeah. So
I went with my dad and my brother, and I think there's just something about being in like nature and the breakthroughs you can have. And we had a lot of, I've never been like super close to my dad and my brother. My brother's 4 years younger than me, and kind of different interests and stuff. But yeah, we just had breakthroughs as a family. We saw the guys there just have like major breakthroughs being in that type of environment and everything. So I'd imagine it's a lot of the same stuff you do, and maybe you can talk about that, just because what do you think's the difference versus doing it? Because a lot of companies, they just go to like other retreats in the cities or whatever.
Yeah,
but
nothing wrong with going to Vegas. I love going to Vegas, playing cards, seeing the shows. Like there's a lot of cool, fun things that you can do with sales reps or companies, or even like with your spouse,
Yeah.
But there's something really special about, I call it disconnect to reconnect. And one thing I love about the campground is there's no cell phone service.
Okay.
Right? And pros and cons.
Yeah.
But like we're always on a device. We're always connected. And I think there really is some power in just saying, hey, this thing doesn't run my life. I'm going to be intentional, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to kind of, you know, focus on priorities and get clear on what really matters. And it doesn't mean, I mean, there's definitely, we do fun stuff too. I think there's a balance with that, right? And it depends on the group. What are they looking to do, you know? But me personally, what resonates with me is the fact that being out in nature, I really think that campfire therapy is a real thing, right? Casey Baugh, a good friend, a mentor, a leader that I look up to. You've met Casey, haven't you? Has he been on the podcast?
He never has. Maybe you could get the introduction.
Hey, you need to get with this guy.
I know Casey's a power. I listen to his podcast, and he's one of the goats for sure. He's
one of the goats, and he's got a heart of gold. But it's no coincidence that he loves to kick it around the fire pit and recruit, and it's because scientifically there's something. And I'm not a scientist, and I'm not going to pretend I am, but I've read about it. There's something about a fire that has a calming therapeutic effect, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it gives you the chance to connect and engage in a way that you can't in a lot of other places. And I think that's what's special about getting up to the ranch is like, I call it campfire therapy.
Yeah.
When you're with the boys or your wife, or with your sales colleagues or whatever, and you guys are kicking it around the campfire, you can have some of the best breakthroughs and some of the best conversations that just wouldn't happen otherwise. Something else that's really unique that I just have a deep love for is horseback therapy. And there's scientific evidence too. Horses are incredible animals. They're like a mirror to your soul in so many ways, but it's been said that the outside of the horse is good for the inside of man. And I really feel like one of my favorite things to do at the end of a long summer of being in a big city, Miami, Pittsburgh, wherever, I just loved coming home and getting in the saddle and disappearing for a few hours, you know? And so if I can take that and share that with, you know, some of my colleagues and people that I work with and give them the chance to just to get out in nature and disconnect and then reconnect, like I'm super passionate about that. Yeah,
it's cool. I was telling you we did horse therapy at the retreat I did, and it wasn't, we weren't riding them, but they just did, you know, you go pet them and all that, and then they did a thing where we all stood in a circle, and then the horses would like come up to I guess they were saying the people that needed to like release their emotions or something. The horses like come up to them.
Cool. Did you have to release some emotions?
Well, probably. The horses didn't come up to me in the circle, so I was like, okay. But
so
at first
something that's interesting that just reminded me of, I was listening to a podcast the other day about horses, and they can literally like incredible animal in so many ways, but you can be on their back in the saddle and they can feel your heartbeat. Yes, and like I said, I'm not a scientist, but if you want to Google it, there's several articles about a connection and a rhythm between your heart and the horses when you're riding them, which is great. And I think it's a shame a lot of people have had, unfortunately, bad experiences when they were young. Maybe not a lot of people, but I get that occasionally. Somebody will come and they'll be like, oh no, I'm afraid of horses. And I think there's something like to be said to just like, when you climb in the saddle, like you're putting a lot of trust in that animal, you know, and I guess it's being vulnerable, you know, and saying, hey, like, I'm trusting you to take care of me, and that's also part of the therapy as well, not to mention being able to get back in the mountains and just see some beautiful scenery. Yeah, no doubt. Well, Dan, it's been awesome having you on, and speaking of the ranch, maybe I know there's probably managers and teams listening to this. If people wanted to hit you out about possibly doing a retreat or checking out your ranch more, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Website, scruffybuffaloranch.com. Okay. Pretty easy to remember. Yeah, I like it. And then Instagram, Facebook, Scruffy Buffalo Ranch. Cool. Or you can just hit me up. Know a lot of guys in the industry. Feel free to shoot me a text. I'd love to get some teams up there and make some memories.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, we'll have to check it out for sure. And yeah, just to end the podcast, is there maybe one piece of advice you'd give our listeners, maybe something that took you longer to learn, or something you wish you would have done different as you're getting into door-to-door or into solar? Maybe a piece of advice for like a newer rep or someone that's struggling?
This is a lesson I feel like I have to learn over and over, but I've been thinking about it at this conference. And this thought keeps coming to me. Don't be afraid to suck, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Like I think it's easy to be, I don't want to try because, I'm afraid of how I'm going to look.
Yeah.
And like you and I were talking about, your podcast, like you had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're going to get better the longer you do it. But with anything, when you start, like you're going to suck. And maybe I should rephrase that. It's okay to be afraid to suck, but don't let that stop you from taking action on your goals or your dreams, right?
Yeah, so good. Yep, man. Yeah, and we were just talking. I mean, I know you were considering doing a podcast, some content.
Yeah, I did one, and it sucked.
Yeah. So,
but I got to take my own advice, right?
Yeah, I know. So we all got to start somewhere. So I think that's great advice. Like in solar, so many guys just get frustrated, quit before they can see themselves get results or have success. So so important, and hopefully anyone that's struggling will take that to heart and remember that you got to go through the pain. You got to suck long enough to actually get better at something.
I think there's another layer to that, if you don't mind, that just kind of came to me, and it's I read it recently, but it might have been some of Sam's content. That's what I love about door-to-door space, right? We're always like feeding each other good stuff. It's there if you want to access it. But along the lines of don't be afraid to suck, it's don't get caught up in the result or the outcome, but focus on the process and the input, right? Like fall in love with just putting in the time and trusting the process. And you're gonna suck. Yeah. But if you keep doing the reps, trusting the process, like you're gonna get better, you know?
For sure. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm gonna have to go check out the ranch, ride some horses with you one day.
Come on up.
Yeah, let's do it. But man, we'll have to have you on again in the future, and guys, reach out to him, let him know you appreciate him coming on the show today, and thanks again, brother.
Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate you.
All right, peace.